Level 1. The first cigarette. You don't think you're becoming a smoker. You're just curious. Maybe you're 17. Maybe you're 21. Maybe you're older. It doesn't matter. You're standing outside with friends. Music is leaking through a half-open door. Someone is laughing inside. Cars are parked along the street. The night air is cold enough that everyone keeps their hands in their pockets. Someone pulls out a pack. You recognize it immediately. Someone offers you one. You hesitate. Not because you're terrified, because you know what cigarettes are supposed to do. You've seen the warnings. You've smelled the smoke on strangers. You know they're bad for you. But one cigarette doesn't feel like addiction. It feels like a cigarette. You take it. Someone gives you a lighter. You inhale. It burns. You cough so hard everyone laughs. You laugh too. Then you try again. This time, you get the inhale right. The smoke goes into your lungs. A few seconds later, something changes. A little dizziness, a strange warmth. For a moment, you feel different. Maybe calmer, maybe older. Maybe you just feel like you belong. And that's enough. You finish the cigarette. You throw it onto the pavement. You go back inside. Nothing has changed. At least that's what you think. You don't wake up the next morning craving nicotine. You don't feel addicted. You don't even think about cigarettes. And that's exactly why the first cigarette is so easy to underestimate. Level 2, the social smoker. You don't buy cigarettes yet. You just smoke when other people do. Parties, bars, outside restaurants, during breaks. Someone always seems to have a pack. You tell yourself you're not a smoker. You can go days without one, sometimes weeks. You don't smoke alone. You don't wake up thinking about cigarettes. So clearly, you're fine. And for a while, you probably are. But something is happening underneath the surface. The cigarette is becoming attached to moments. Good night, smoke. Bad day, smoke. Long conversation, smoke. Drinks with friends, smoke. You aren't thinking about nicotine. You're thinking about the situation. The cigarette just happens to be part of it. Then one night, nobody offers you one. You notice you could go without it. Instead, you ask. Your friend hands you a cigarette. You light it, and that tiny moment of relief feels strangely satisfying. You don't stop to ask why. You just keep talking. But now the cigarette isn't something that happened to you. It's something you wanted. You still don't consider yourself a smoker. You just have a few exceptions. That's how exceptions work. They multiply. Level 3, the routine. Now you buy your own pack. You tell yourself it's more convenient. You're not smoking that much. One in the morning, maybe one after lunch, one when you get home, one before bed. You don't even think about the number anymore. The pattern matters more. Coffee becomes cigarette. Driving becomes cigarette. Finishing work becomes cigarette. Dinner becomes cigarette. You step outside automatically. You light up before you've even decided to. And eventually, you notice something strange. You don't really ask yourself whether you want a cigarette anymore. You just reach for one. That's when a habit becomes something more powerful. It starts predicting your behavior for you. One morning, you wake up and realize you're out. You check the pack again. Empty. You look at the clock. The store doesn't open for another 20 minutes. 20 minutes suddenly feels much longer than 20 minutes should. You're irritated. You tell yourself it's ridiculous. You're not addicted. You're just annoyed because you like your morning cigarette. The store opens. You buy another pack. And when you finally light one, you feel a wave of relief. That relief bothers you for about 3 seconds. Then you forget about it. You have a cigarette to smoke. Level 4, the stress smoker. Life gets harder. Not dramatically. Just enough. Work piles up. Bills arrive. Someone you love disappoints you. A relationship starts becoming complicated. You lie awake replaying conversations you wish had gone differently. And then you discover something useful. Smoking gives you an exit. You step outside. You light up. For 5 minutes, nobody needs anything from you. You can stand alone. Watch the smoke disappear. Let your thoughts slow down. The cigarette becomes a break from life. And your brain starts learning an association. Stress means cigarette. Anxiety means cigarette. Boredom means cigarette. Anger means cigarette. Loneliness means cigarette. The cigarette isn't just something you enjoy anymore. It's something you use. That distinction matters, because once a substance becomes your answer to an emotion, you start having fewer reasons to learn other answers. You don't have to sit with the anxiety. You can smoke. You don't have to process the anger. You can smoke. You don't have to tolerate 5 uncomfortable minutes. You can smoke. And slowly, the cigarette becomes the button you press whenever reality gets uncomfortable. You still tell yourself you can stop whenever you want. You just don't want to yet. Level 5, the daily smoker. Now cigarettes are part of the architecture of your day. You wake up. Coffee. Cigarette. You leave for work. Cigarette. Lunch. Cigarette. Afternoon slump. Cigarette. Dinner. Cigarette. You know where you can smoke. You know where you can't. You know how long a cigarette takes. You know exactly how many are left in the pack without counting. And you start making tiny adjustments to your life. You choose the restaurant with an outdoor smoking area. You leave a movie halfway through because you can't wait. You stand outside in the rain because the craving doesn't care about the weather. You finish dinner faster because you already know what's coming next. You don't think of these as sacrifices. They're just little inconveniences. Then you notice your body. You get winded more easily. Your throat feels rough in the morning. Exercise doesn't feel quite the same. You climb stairs and arrive at the top breathing harder than you remember. You cough. Not constantly. Just enough. You blame the weather. You're out of shape. You haven't slept well. You'll start exercising again. And you keep smoking. Nothing feels catastrophic. That's what makes this stage so easy to ignore. There is no alarm, no dramatic moment, just small changes that you gradually accept as normal. Level 6, the dependent. This is where the relationship changes. You wake up and want a cigarette, not because you're excited about it, because something feels wrong without it. You're restless, irritable, distracted. You can't quite settle down. You check the time. You know what would fix it. You smoke. And suddenly, you feel normal again. That distinction is brutal. The cigarette isn't necessarily making you feel good anymore. It's relieving the discomfort created by not having nicotine. The thing causing the problem has become the thing temporarily solving it. So the loop becomes almost invisible. You smoke. Nicotine levels fall. You feel uncomfortable. You smoke again. Relief. Then it starts over. You decide to cut down. Monday. Definitely Monday. Monday arrives. You make it through breakfast. Then work gets stressful. You tell yourself one cigarette won't matter. You smoke. And because you already broke the rule, you smoke another. You promise yourself tomorrow will be different. Tomorrow keeps moving. The pack keeps disappearing. And the sentence remains the same. I can stop whenever I want. But now stopping isn't something you casually choose. It's something you have to fight yourself to attempt. Level 7, the controlled smoker. You make rules. No smoking in the house. No smoking before breakfast. No more than 10 a day. Never around family. Never during work. Never buy more than one pack. The rules make you feel better because rules look like control. Then the rules start bending. You smoke before breakfast. You smoke in the car. You buy another pack because you're running low. You tell yourself you'll compensate tomorrow. Tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next month. And now you're spending mental energy thinking about cigarettes even when you're not smoking. Do I have enough? Where can I smoke? When is my next break? How long until I can step outside? Can I get through this meeting? You haven't lit the cigarette yet, but it's already controlling part of your attention. Then you start noticing the money. One pack doesn't look like much. One day doesn't either. But days become months. Months become years. You eventually try calculating how much you've spent. You stop halfway through. It's easier not to know. And that's another strange thing about addiction. Sometimes ignorance becomes part of the habit. Level 8, the hidden smoker. Now you hide it. You spray air freshener, chew gum, wash your hands, change your shirt, keep cigarettes somewhere nobody will see them. You don't want people asking questions. How many do you smoke? Are you trying to quit? Do you really need another one? You hate those questions, not because they're necessarily wrong, because you already know what the answers might reveal. Your partner notices the smell. Your family notices the cough. Your friends notice that every conversation somehow ends with you stepping outside. You say you're cutting down. Sometimes you even mean it. But the cigarettes keep appearing, and secrecy changes the habit. You're no longer just smoking. You're managing the evidence. You hide the pack, hide the smell, hide the number, hide the fact that you've tried to stop. Maybe you start lying. Not huge lies, tiny ones. I only had 2 today. I haven't smoked yet. That's my last pack. I'll quit soon. Every lie makes the next one easier, and something else begins disappearing. Trust. People stop believing your promises. You don't understand why. You mean them when you make them. But meaning a promise and being able to keep it are becoming 2 different things. Level 9, the addicted smoker. By now, the cigarette doesn't feel like a choice in the same way it once did. You don't smoke because you think it's cool. You don't smoke because you're curious. You don't even necessarily smoke because you enjoy it. You smoke because your brain expects nicotine, and your entire day has been built around satisfying that expectation. You wake up thinking about it. You plan around it. You spend money on it. You hide it. You defend it. You organize breaks around it. And the cost is no longer one thing. It's everything around the cigarette. The money, the time, the smell, the coughing, the reduced stamina, the constant planning, the arguments, the failed promises, the moments you've left early, the places you've avoided, the things you've postponed, the person you keep telling yourself you'll become after you quit. And beneath all of it is something harder to measure: freedom. Because eventually you have to ask yourself a question. Are you deciding when to smoke, or is smoking deciding when you get to feel normal? Level 10, the reckoning. Years have passed. You look back at the person who smoked that first cigarette. They weren't trying to become addicted. They weren't planning to spend years thinking about nicotine. They weren't imagining the money, the cravings, the smell, the excuses, the mornings when breathing doesn't feel as effortless as it used to. They just wanted to see what it felt like. And that's what makes the whole thing uncomfortable. The damage didn't arrive all at once. It arrived in pieces. A cigarette here, a cigarette there, a few minutes outside, a few dollars spent, a promise postponed, a workout skipped, a cough ignored, a rule broken, a relationship strained, a little more dependence, a little less control. None of those moments felt like the moment your life changed, but they added up. You think about all the cigarettes you've smoked, not the exact number. You couldn't possibly count them. You think about all the time, all the money, all the mornings when you woke up already thinking about the next cigarette. You think about how many times you said you would stop. You think about the things you could have bought, the places you could have gone, the runs you could have taken, the mornings you could have spent without planning your first smoke. And then you notice something else. The cigarette has been with you through almost everything. Your best days, your worst days, breakups, birthdays, promotions, bad news, long drives, late nights, stressful mornings. It became attached to your memories. So quitting doesn't just mean giving up nicotine. It means separating yourself from something you've allowed to become part of your identity. You remember the first cigarette, the burn, the laughter, the dizziness, how harmless it felt. You didn't know what nicotine would eventually ask from you. That's the trap. Addiction doesn't usually introduce itself as a life-changing decision. It introduces itself as something small, something social, something temporary, something you can stop whenever you want. Until one day, you realize the cigarette isn't something you keep in your life. It's something your life has been quietly rearranging itself around. And the person who lit that first cigarette thought they were choosing what to do. They couldn't see the years ahead. They couldn't see the money, the cravings, the cough, the compromises, the arguments, the mornings, the calculations, the rules, the excuses. They only saw one cigarette. But addiction doesn't need one giant decision. It only needs you to make the same small decision enough times. And eventually, the question isn't whether you can remember why you started smoking. You can. The harder question is this: when was the last time you actually chose to smoke, instead of simply feeling like you had to? Thank you for watching Vinta.